The Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, he entered the synagogue and taught. They were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. And just then there was in the synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. And he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent, and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. And they were all amazed. And they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." At once his fame began to spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord. Pray with me. O God, I pray that these words of mine will not just add to all the other words said in pulpits today, but rather that they will be infused with the power of the one who inspired them, and will not be just information, but rather will lead to our transformation into your image. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, he entered the synagogue and taught. They were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. I've written an article entitled "White Coat to White Alb: Pediatric Neurosurgery to Lutheran Ministry." And it will be published in the next couple of months in the Journal of Neurosurgery. It describes my transition from being a pediatric neurosurgeon wearing a white lab coat to being a Lutheran minister wearing a white alb. And it describes some of the ways those two professions are profoundly different. One of the major differences is with authority. In that career, I was a nationally known pediatric neurosurgeon. I published many articles in a major textbook and lectured in many countries. Doctors listened, patients listened, and they trusted what I said. Sometimes I would have to tell parents, "Your child has a brain tumor and it needs to be removed. The removal has some risks, but unless it is removed, in time it would cause her to die." And the parents listened, and because of my authority, they almost always trusted what I said. But now, as an ordained Lutheran minister, things are more than a little different. I'm no longer an authority. To prepare a sermon, I pray, I consult Greek translations, commentaries, and online resources for many hours before every sermon. And then I offer my interpretation of the text and its meaning for our lives to the listeners who often have radically different opinions, and they are glad to express with certainty. It's been said that the motto of neurosurgeons is "maybe wrong, but never in doubt." Well, I seem to perceive that a few parishioners who listen to our sermons have that same motto, but will not go there. In the first draft of the article that will be published, before it was edited, I wrote that people who do not have the life of Christ, the Spirit of God living with them and within them, in a way are like dead people walking. And the editor of the journal wrote back, "You don't preach that, do you?" "Yes, I do. Jesus said time after time that the reason he came was to give us life. And he once told someone, 'Follow me, let the dead bury their dead.' So yes, I preach that. I have it on good authority." But as I prepared this sermon, I realized that I have authority, not my personal authority, but the authority of Jesus and the power of his words. The great preacher Fred Craddock changed preaching a few decades ago with his book entitled As One Without Authority. Before that, preachers stood high in their pulpits, 6 feet above any contradiction, and proclaimed the truth. But Craddock's preaching invited the listeners to enter the story and experience what it said to them, rather than being told by the preacher what it meant. In today's story, Jesus had been baptized, had called his first 4 disciples, Peter, Andrew, James, and John, and they went to Capernaum, a fishing village on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee. On the Sabbath, Jesus and his disciples went to the local synagogue. Archaeologists have excavated and restored this synagogue, the so-called White Synagogue because of the color of its stones. They restored this synagogue in Capernaum from the 4th century, but it was built on the remains of the 1st century synagogue of Jesus. You can see the black stones of that synagogue's foundation. So Jesus and his disciples went to the synagogue, and it appears that Jesus did not just sit down on the back row and listen to the local rabbi. Instead, he seems to have gone right up front and to have begun teaching. Well, the scribes there, who were scholars of the Torah and the Jewish law, would not have been pleased about this for at least 3 reasons. First, he would have pushed their normal rabbi aside, the one they were used to. Second, they had no evidence that he had ever spent 1 day of his life studying the law and the prophets at the Hebrew seminary down in Jerusalem. But the thing that irked them the most was that he did not teach as they taught. The way they taught was to quote, to pass on, the opinions of other scholars about the meaning of the law, the Torah. That would be like me quoting the opinions of Martin Luther or John Calvin. But Jesus taught them as one having authority. Now, how was he able to speak like that? In the word authority, what is the first portion of the word? A-U-T-H-O-R, author. He spoke like that because he was the author, the one who originated the words in the Torah. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So he would not only teach them the Shema, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your soul and your heart and your mind," but then he could teach them what that meant and how to do it. That's where his authority came from. He was the author of God's teaching. Just then, there was in the synagogue a man with an unclean spirit. Well, unclean here did not refer to being dirty, but rather to being ritually impure because of his mental condition. Try to envision this. That synagogue was about 70 feet long and about 60 feet wide, not very large. So everyone could have seen and heard when the man cried out at Jesus, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." What would the scribes have thought when they heard that? They were already offended, and this would have incensed them even more that Jesus did not refute what the man said. This was heresy. To be acknowledged as the Holy One of God and not deny it? But Jesus rebuked the spirit. "Be silent and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. They were all amazed, and they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority." Their words call up a deeper question. Who is this with such authority? And they call up for each of us the question, Do we choose to follow Jesus and his teachings on our journey through life? To do what Jesus teaches us to do? To follow this teacher on a journey that led him to a cross and then to a resurrection? I began wanting and trying to follow Jesus when I was 12 years old. That trying became more intentional 30 years later, when I began having morning quiet times almost every day to read books about Jesus and discipleship, and to read and listen to sermons by great preachers. Almost every day since then, so some 13,000 days began like that, studying Jesus and his teachings, trying to follow him. It has been a way of life. And as I look back over my life, I can see times when God blessed me in ways that were totally undeserved, and times when God gave me what I needed to go through the hard times of life that all of us go through. So as I look back over my life, my one thought is, thank you, God. I've never known anyone, never heard of anyone who followed Jesus and his teachings all their life, and at its end looked back and said, damn it, that was a mistake. I wish I had done it my way. That never happens. If we want the life Jesus came to give, the way to it is clear. We fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. We fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. I'm telling you that on good authority.